Hi, my name's Kristen Boddy and I'm an IELTS teacher at Viva College in Brisbane. Today in Spotlight on IELTS, we're continuing our series talking about Task 1 of the IELTS Academic Writing Test. Just as a brief review, don't forget that you need to write 150 words and you have 20 minutes to do that. If you write more than 150 words, that's fine. But if you write less than 150 words, you will be penalized, so be careful. In our last segment, we talked about paragraph 1 of your writing task. In today's segment, we're talking about paragraphs 2 and 3. Because this is a 3-paragraph model, I do suggest that you try and write 50 words per paragraph. But of course, if you write a little bit more in one, you can write a little bit less in another. So many of my students ask me, Kristen, how on earth do I identify the important information to write about? It's so difficult. There's so much information. And to be honest, I totally agree. It is a really difficult task. So I want to give you some tips about how you can identify the most critical information to talk about. Don't forget that the question actually does ask you to summarize the information. So if you simply describe all of the data step by step, you will lose marks. The task is to summarize and highlight key data. Alright, so my first suggestion, when you're looking at a graph like this, which has 2 different lines, you want to try and identify the highest and lowest points for each line. So of course, for this first line here, the lowest point is at the beginning of the time period, and the highest point is at the very end of the time period. For this line here, the highest point is in the middle of the time period, and the lowest point is at the end. So it would be important to comment on the highest and lowest figures and also make sure that you actually give the numbers to support the statements that you're making. The next thing that you can talk about is changes over time. So here we have data that goes from 1975 to the year 2000. So for this first line, you would describe that overall the data increased during this time period, in spite of some fluctuations, increases and decreases during this period. For the second line, you would make a note that overall, generally speaking in this period, the data, the figures decreased, in spite of some increases and decreases throughout the period. The final thing that you're going to talk about is some similarities and differences, because in the question, you're asked to compare and contrast the data. So if you look at this first line here, it starts very low, it has a period of fluctuation, it has a dip, a significant increase, and then a plateau. On the other hand, or in contrast, the second line starts significantly higher. It does also have a period of fluctuation, which is a similarity, but then towards the end of the period, it has a significant or rapid decline. One way to really help you identify similarities and differences is to use linking words like on the one hand, on the other hand, the former, the latter, in contrast, however, conversely. All of these words are going to make it very clear to the examiner that you're comparing the data. So, if you talk about the highs and the lows, changes over time, similarities and differences, you're definitely going to identify the most important aspects of the data. So let's do a quick recap. Don't forget you have to write 150 words. You have 20 minutes to do it. And in paragraphs 2 and 3, you need to write a minimum of 50 words per paragraph. You're going to talk about the highs and the lows in each piece of data. You're going to describe changes over time. You're then going to compare the data and think about similarities and differences, and try to use effective linking words in order to do that. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name's Kristen Boddy, and I'm an IELTS teacher at Viva College in Brisbane. If you have any questions or would like to make any comments, please leave them in the comments section below. And I hope that you'll join us next time for the next part in our series talking about Task 1 of the IELTS Academic Writing Test. Bye for now.